All right, guys. The run game was a huge thing that I've been talking about for years, and not just any run game, inside run game. Most notably, inside zone. Man blocking isn't a thing as much as it used to be a few years ago. It takes certain kind of guys, and you can kind of match the inside and outside zone if you have the right offensive line. But we really haven't and don't. But this week, we ran a ton of inside zone, and it was body blows. It was a lot like what we saw with the Jags, and we had a very good day of running. You cannot say it wasn't a good day on the ground. McDaniel made the right choice. He dialed up the right scheme, and it was the deciding factor, the main one, I think, in why we won this game. But football is not a clean thing where you can take one game and then just repro that going forward, because there's so many variables. And you cannot take away the good aspects of this. The philosophy, the concept in that moment was perfect. And if we could apply that, like I said, in a repro to other teams, better teams, other situations, we would be a super duper team. Now, what I want to do today is I'm going to get into the context. I'm going to use a lot of stats and information to create an overview. I'm going to do the run game tomorrow. I'm going to do Chop Robinson, going over the film tonight. But there's very, very, very clear stuff. And so I want to kind of get you to understand the matchup, the situation, and then when you understand the why, more people are more concerned about the numbers and the stat line and all. Of course, it's the final result, but the why creates the evaluation, and the why helps you to have an accurate evaluation going forward. Not saying I got all the answers. I don't pretend to be a guru, but my accuracy is very high. I'm not, I'm sorry if that offends some people. Some people get like, well, you think it's so, I don't think I'm a genius. I just, when I do wrong, I say I do wrong. And I'm sure some of you guys out there are very happy to say you got it wrong. But my accuracy has been very high. You can go check. The bad side of being behind this camera is, being behind the camera, or in front of the camera, I should say, not behind the camera is the shooter, the camera guy. Being in front of the camera is that you're going to be in front of the camera. I hate it. But the good side is that my wins and losses are recorded. And so there is very good things from this, but you have to understand context. So I'm going to get into all that. It's not going to be a terribly long podcast. I'm still under the weather. My brain is sort of scrambled. It's getting better. But I want to start off with something from a long-standing viewer, Galandris. He's a guy who has a high-level job. He's always been a straight shooter. He knows the game pretty well. I don't ever take him. There's nothing I would see from him that would mean he's disingenuous. I've been trained to kind of vet liars from prior careers and training. And I think he's honest. And so this is what he said. Curtis, I think I mentioned to you that one of my mates is Jalen Wright's uncle. He and former Dolphins tight end Eric Green, remember Eric Green, the big guy who's supposed to be huge for us with Shula, are good friends. He went to the game to see his nephew for the first time. Guess what the first thing that came out of his mouth when I saw him today? Them boys on the O-line are small, man, smaller than me. He showed me a live video of the intentional grounding because he sat behind the end zone. There must have been 1.5 seconds before the rush was on Huntley. That happened throughout the game. He told me the TEs can't block either, and Hill was slacking in his routes once he saw that the ball wasn't coming to him. Maybe that's why he looked like he got overthrown on the 9 route. Anyways, the first time he went to a Dolphins live game, he saw the same issues with the blocking. Now, I'm not going to say don't take it as gospel, but Eric Green was a Pro Bowl tight end and got a little dinged and came to Miami. He was never met up to what he was supposed to be, but he's pro. And Jalen Wright's uncle went there, and at first that's what they saw. So it doesn't mean gospel, but it's a data point, and it's a data point that I've been talking about. But on the good side of things, we had a big run day. So how did that come about? Some of that is good news going forward. It's something that I've talked about for a long time, not just about the concept of running inside and running them out of the box and body blows come from the inside zone, not the outside zone. But Robert Jones is a guy I said he had an incongruent skill set to this team. And that if you relied on his drive blocking and inside zone blocking, you could build something off that. Now, there's a problem with Brewer and Eichenberg and Jackson, but still, in certain situations, if you got a dog to run a certain type of thing, it can help uplift what you got, especially when you got Tehran on the other side. So I'm going to get into the offensive line and what they've done. Now, before you get into all that, it's not just you. It's the matchup. You can look like a total piece of dog poop, but all day you went against the Hall of Famer. And so, you know, who's not going to look like dog poop against the Hall of Famer? Now, that's not the situation, but the understanding the comparisons of matchups creates the context of the evaluation. And so you have to say, well, what were they facing? And a broad stroke on that is, well, they were like the 9th best run defense. But that's not really a complete view of the situation. That is a misnomer. It's deception. It's an illusion in a lot of ways. So let me explain to you, show you through statistics who the Pats were. They went against San Fran, the 5th ranked run defense, and gave up 132 yards. You know, sadly for a lot of teams, that's not a bad day against San Fran. But it's not like the 9th best, like they limited them to under 100 or something. But then you look, Seattle, the 19th best, and you can see they struggled against us. And we weren't the best run defense. So that was a pretty kind of easy day. But I'm going to add a little context to that to understand the difference between that game and this game. They went against the Jets, who the 32nd last in the league in running the football, and Cincy, who's 24th. So 2 of the teams were bottom of the third. One was the bottom end of the second third, and one was top third, and they still gave over 100 yards, gave up almost over 100 yards. But you have to remember that the Patriots defense, the foundation of it is 3 safeties. They've invested big in their safeties. They rely on those small looks. And Jabril Peppers, who just got arrested for like a domestic abuse or gun possession or some kind of crazy stuff Saturday, we just found out, he was out of the game. He is the best player on their defense this season, especially in the run defense. And Duggar was out as well. Now, they had to move Mapu, who he was supposedly a big-time player, but he's been lost. They moved him to safety, and he's a linebacker. They have Raekwon Davis. I don't know how Raekwon still has a job as anything more than a special teamer. He's bad. White, who's a darn good player, but he's not doing so well in the run defense because they usually move him inside, and he's not really big enough. He's kind of undersized. He's kind of tall and a little bit thinner. And then they got Dietrich Wise Jr. is not good. And they got Devon Godchow, who we know is not – I mean, this guy is not good in the run stop. Occasionally he'll make a play. You saw him against Brewer. But this is not a good run defense, especially when you pull Duggar and Jabril and you add Bentley and all. They're a smoke and mirrors kind of defense. They rely on blitzing and out-calling you. And when you pull 2 of their major pieces – which are the safeties. I mean, Gonzalez is really good. I do like White. There's guys on the team that are quality players, but you really have hamstrung this team. And you can see that a lot of that base rating of about 9th in the league in run defense is somewhat inflated. And it's even more inflated when you pull out these 2 core players. It does not dismiss what we did. But last year, everyone was like, well, we didn't have Connor and Hunt, so it's understandable. Yes, you pull players out, and the results are the results, but the evaluation through the matchup changes, and how you port that to other games matters. And so I'm going to get into these specific numbers, but this was not a stellar run defense, and they've kind of had an easy schedule, and they were kind of hamstrung by two of their key players being out, and they're very thin. And then when you add on top of that, Andrews, the best offensive lineman. I like Onwenu. I think he's better at guard. But you pull in, this team had major problems sustaining drives and putting points on. And then that added to the problem of this thin, beat up, not so hot defense getting more and more body blows and being on the field longer. And I think I talked about it. It was 34 minutes and 20 seconds, 25 and 40. They had 20 more plays. And so this might not have been what it was if McDaniel didn't grow. And that was by running the inside zone. And that's where you have to give credit to him. And if you run outside plays, for the most part, the primary thing you're taxing on that unit is their speed of foot, their agility to get to the edge, and their endurance, because you got to run farther. Inside zone, they don't have to run as far, but the contact is direct. It's more brutal, and it starts siphoning away the vitality of the player. And the more these inside zones, these hard contact plays that are lined up where the back is driving in and the offensive line is driving in and these guys are falling to piles and they're getting blasted, you're siphoning the vitality away. And in time, that can make a defense break. Just like the Jags, who couldn't keep their defense off the field, couldn't generate any kind of real drives. They had the heat, way worse than here. But you could see a defense who's not bad slowly break down. And the Dolphins, who struggle to run inside, all of a sudden now they're running very well. And this has to do with making the right calls, but the situations were very, very conducive. Now, if we take a look at these graphics here, we'll take a look at this. Miami's run blocking grades. Okay, now, I don't care so much for the grades. You can agree with them, not agree with them. But even if you create a ballpark understanding about it and say, hey, look, they're not totally retard. They didn't go full retard. There's something to this. You'll see, though, a few things beyond the grades. The grades just hold as a rudimentary rough point. But notice the zone and gap blocking. Now, the zone blocking is within a zone. It could be zone stretch. It could be inside zone. Gap is where a guy gets on the move and they flood a gap with guys. And that's usually good for guys that are fleet of foot and agile. But look at Robert Jones with a 90.1 in zone. Look at Tehran and Ingold, even Brewer, Tyreek, Smythe. They all had good days in zone blocking. Now, again, some of that can be outside zone. But inside zone is a lot less finicky. It's shorter space. It's more personal. It's more immediate. And you can see Austin Jackson and Eichenberg struggled to both those, where Jackson had better run blocking in the gap. He's not a drive blocker. Eichenberg's not a drive blocker. But Jones really led the way. When you go back to the tape, and you'll see it for a while, he's the only guy pancaking people. He's the only guy moving people in the run game, as long as he's not going to the second level and he's got to do outside zone. And so Armstead could do whatever. He's better as a move blocker than a drive blocker, but he could do anything, and he had a darn good game yesterday. But you could see, even with Ingold, this was a good day. But when you go through the film, you'll see a lot of it was predicated on the inside zone. And as the game progressed, the wear and tear exasperated and increased the effectiveness of this run game. They broke down. And so McDaniel started, I'm going to show you the run chart. I'm going to show you the yards before contact and the yards after contact, and you're going to see something very interesting there. But you're going to see McDaniel finally kind of understood. And he stuck with it, and he utilized Jones' strength, unlike any game I think I've seen him before. I got to go back and check the Jazz game. I don't remember exactly, but this was a very, very, very smart game. But you take a look at this little graphic here, you can see the top, what the numbers are, what the names are. Left end, left tackle. You can see centers in the middle with the C, so you can kind of get an idea where the ball's going. The purple is where we had our greatest success, and then a lower level success is the orange. But you can see that left tackle, left guard combo. And I got to see who they were going against. There's that too. You have to pull into it. But just on the face of it, this was our most successful area. So you can see yards per attempt, 2.8, 5.5, 4.3, 6.1, 3, 10, 4, 4.5, for ultimately for a 4.7. Now, I'm going to break it all down, and you can see yards after contact, 3.6. So ultimately, on the whole day, the backs got 1.07 yards before contact. And that's not good. But despite it not being good, McDaniel stuck with it. So now you can look at the left end, yards per attempt, 2.8. That's the top LE. Yards before contact, 3. So it was -2 yards. Not good. But you can see a left guard, it was left tackle, it was 5.5. You can see the yards after contact, 3.75. But it was 1.75 yards before contact. Left guard, 4.3. 2.75, 1.55. And so those were 4 rushes there, 8 rushes total between the two. And then you can see middle left 4. You got 6.8, but if you notice, it's 6.5 yards from the contact, so it was only 0.3 before contact. These backs gave their bodies. They hit the holes hard. And this says a lot about Mostert, A-Chain before he went down, and obviously Jalen Wright. Middle right, 3 and 2.5, 0.5. Right guard, which is behind Eichenberg, you got 1.3, which is not good, but it's something. So I think from a consistency standpoint, none of this is exceptional. But clearly, you can see how behind Tehran and behind Jones, there are possibilities. Now, I can go through the tape to see what is what. I still think that Brewer is susceptible to power, and he kind of drains things as well. And you have to factor in that left guard spot. Brewer's tied to that, and so we have to kind of gauge that as well, along as the middle right and the right guard. So we have to factor all that in, who did what. But the fact is that we ran 41 times, and we had sizable averages of 5.5, 4.3, 6.8, 10.3, and even 4.0. And that's a total of 6, 10, 18 carries. And then you add the right end, that's 26 carries for over 4 yards per carry. And so McDaniel stuck with this. They couldn't generate an offense. And that's part of our defense. Everything's tied together. So as the defense limits the offense and gets them off the field, gets the offense off the field, then the offense comes back on quicker so your team. And then now they get to attack that tired defense again. A defense needs 6, 7, 8 plays to really kind of get a breather. When it's like 3 plays or 4 plays and then back on again, it's crazy. Some of those guys are playing special teams. And so the length of these drives and it's like a heartbeat. When they're very quick, you can feel the defense gassing. And so our defense got this bad offense quickly, brought our offense back on. McDaniel was smart enough. Hey, look, let's take that field goal and not go all in on the 4th and 1. Let's keep running that football, get them back out again, and eventually they're going to break. And that's what happened. That's a sign of good coaching. It's a sign of a good philosophy. But to say it's portable going forward, I don't know. And maybe it is. We'll see. But some people will be like, pull Jones out and put Wynn in. And if you do that, then you will not be able to drive block the inside zone that you saw today. Lights again. The inside zone that you saw today won't happen the same, because while Wynn will be good as a complementary player for your outside zone and your move stuff and getting to the second level, you're going to lose a lot of your drive ability with the loss of Jones. So maybe Jones could go in for Eichenberg. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see what they do. So I'll get into the tape today of the offensive run game, pass blocking too, and Chubb. But you have to take this in a reality. This is a low-end team. Their low offense actually helps your run game because they're not putting your defense out on the field. And then their defense is thin and not as good as advertised. And so you got to keep this in a box and say, okay, good. We got the win. McDaniel did the right thing. But if you start writing like, this is what we got to do going forward, remember we had, 370 or something against the Broncos or some crazy thing, and then like a null against the Giants, and all of a sudden like the spigot got turned off. And there were games that Hunt was in there and Connor was in there, still got turned off because the matchups were not the same. So good news, McDaniel has seen some light. Good news, he saw Jones and utilized his skill set. Good news, we won. But let's keep this as a data point and that is a wholesale evaluation. Anyway, Curtis saying, be well, go Fins, Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.